What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters. I'm David Wilson, and today we are doing another System Crafters live stream on Friday, as usual. And yeah, let's see. Just making sure that all my stuff is set up correctly today. I had a little bit more time to set things up this morning, so I think that I probably won't have as much of a disaster as previous days. But now that I say that, things are probably going to blow up immediately, so good for me. So let me just take a sip of this tea here, and then I will say hello to some people who have arrived. All right, so I want to say hello to Pedro, Drishal, Simon, Tomas, Valentino, Ashraz, Kandi, Medri, Matias, Alejandro, Glenn, Pavel, Benoit, John, Luis, Hendrik, Mark. Thanks to all of you for being here today. Valentino asked, am I on the old PC? No, I'm not on the old PC. Hey, Colin, Adrian. I'm still on the other PC, my personal machine, not my streaming machine. The other one's still being fixed. Wow, and right now I'm getting bugged by what seems to be a political call, according to my phone. So that's really interesting. Jeez. So yeah, still working on the underpowered machine, but it seems to be going okay. So we'll keep on with it for now. Hey, let's see. We have Ned, H. Gotendia. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Gan, Anders, hey. Let's see here. Cool. I think everything's looking good right now. All right. So let's see. What's been going on lately? Well, I think I should just go ahead and start talking about the first thing, the Great IRC Experiment. So last Friday, I don't even remember how I got started talking about it, but I had set up a channel for System Crafters in the new Libra chat server, and we've been playing with it for the last week. There's been quite a few people there who joined both after last Friday and also after the video that I posted on Tuesday about ERC. And we've been having a lot of fun in IRC, just playing around with ERC and various other IRC clients and trying to figure out how we can use it effectively. We've got about, 40 to 50 people in the channel at any given time, but maybe some of those accounts are like duplicated because people are using IRC from Matrix as well. But it's been a lot of fun, and I've been having fun, collaborating with folks there on various different improvements, and also the new System Crafters wiki that I haven't really announced yet, but I'm mentioning it now. Basically, this wiki.systemcrafters.cc. It's a project spearheaded by the Catster, Daniel Rose, and also Shom. So that's been going really well. So yeah, we've been having a lot of fun there. Also, another interesting point is that we're now a registered community on Libra Chat, which means that we have sort of quote-unquote ownership over the System Crafters channel, plus any other sub-channels that we might create there under the sort of System Crafters namespace. It gives us a couple of abilities to moderate those things a bit better, I think. So I think it's going to be nice for us to have like a real official presence there. I think they may also list this on the website, but I haven't actually found where that happens. Also, Shom did figure out how to bridge the System Crafters channel from IRC to Matrix. So if you are more familiar with chat applications like Discord and you want a similar experience, you don't really like the whole sort of tech-centric interface of IRC, you can try using Matrix to join the System Crafters IRC channel, and it will basically look like a Discord channel to you in a sense, because you'll have full history of the channel chat. the ability to mention people, the ability to post longer messages, embedded stuff. Also, there was something else. A good mobile app support, basically. So that's another option if you wanted to try out the IRC chat, but you don't really want to use an IRC client for that. Check out this wiki page that Shom wrote about connecting to the different chat options, and there's a section there explaining how to get hooked up to the Matrix bridge if you want to try it that way. Yeah, also, Benoit's been working on a bot for the channel, which is pretty fun. So we've been sort of looking at a couple different options for that. And I think for now, we're going to try using the same bot that they use in the Emacs channel on LibreChat. It's written in Emacs Lisp, so it might be easier for people to contribute, but we are inheriting a code base that has been around for 10 plus years, I think. And it's kind of, I think it's got a hodgepodge of different coding styles for Emacs Lisp, so I don't know whether we'll end up trying to clean that up some and maybe make it a little bit more effective for contribution. But to be honest, I haven't looked at it very much, so I don't really know what that's going to look like yet. But that's going to be another fun thing. I mean, the benefit of having a bot in an IRC channel is the ability to make it easy to pull up certain commonly requested information. Since you don't have a back buffer or a history buffer in IRC, if you don't have other tools to enable that for yourself, you can't really search for things people have already asked for. So a bot can help facilitate people leaving note-specific questions that people ask so that it's easy to call those back up, and also some other random behavior that you can add to it as well. So it's kind of a fun thing to have inside of an IRC room. And probably the one question that many of you are asking yourselves, and which I've also been asked in the Discord recently, is are we leaving Discord as the place where the System Crafters community congregates? And the short answer is no, we're not leaving Discord. I mean, I'm still there every day. I respond to questions there. I still welcome people whenever they enter the Discord. So we're not leaving Discord anytime soon. Really what we're doing with the IRC channel at this point is experimenting to see if we can come up with a comfortable way for people to use it for a few different use cases. The number one for me, the thing that I've been wanting forever, is the ability to use or to chat with the System Crafters community from Emacs, from a buffer in Emacs itself, rather than having to use an external client like the Discord client. So that was a priority for me, and that's the reason why IRC made the most sense, because there's already a built-in IRC client. Well, there's actually two built-in IRC clients in Emacs, and then another one called Circe, which is really good. And, you know, it's easier to use that on, or it's easier to chat on IRC with Emacs than it is on any of the other protocols, like even Matrix, and especially Discord. Now, if you don't like using IRC and you want more of the full-featured experience, I wasn't sure how to do that until we figured out how to bridge Matrix over to IRC effectively. So now I think with those two things together, we have a path to eventually getting off Discord, but this is like much later. Maybe we're talking like 9 months to a year later, and it would have to be the case that it was very easy for new people to join the chat, just like it is right now. It's very easy to join the Discord chat. It would have to be similarly easy for people to join the System Crafters chat on IRC/Matrix, and I would have to have a lot of the same benefits, I think, at least for people who are using it on the Matrix side. So I'm very aware of the need to not disrupt things. I don't want to disrupt things. I also don't want people to feel like they have to go completely change the way they interact with us, because, you know, it might cause some people not to try. They may not come back. So I don't want to do that. So we'll stay on Discord as long as necessary. And if it seems that there's enough people who want to stay on Discord permanently, then I may still do that too. We may have to bridge things together to Discord. I'm trying to avoid bridging things to Discord because I want to give us the flexibility to do it later if we want to, but not set it up now and then sort of have to maintain that going forward, because Discord doesn't really like you connecting external stuff to the API as far as I can tell. So I'm just trying to avoid that basically. All right, I'm gonna answer a couple questions here. So Matthew says, excuse me, definitely need the DF and DV in there. Yeah, the Urbot that Benoit is pulling up is, excuse me, it has that built in, I think. That was one of the things that I was saying too, is that we need a way to make it easy to pull up information from within Emacs. So if basically you're trying to explain a variable or a function in Emacs to someone, you could get the bot to pull the documentation so that it's right there in the chat. I think that's kind of a cool feature for at least Emacs users. So using an existing bot that has that functionality is a good thing, I think. Anders says that he doesn't mind. That's great. Hope to see you in the IRC chat. Tomas, hey, how's it going? Valentina says, David, you will always maintain the Discord channel, right? Well, it depends on how things go. Now, if people still want to stay in the Discord after some time, after having tried IRC and Matrix and whatnot, then I may still maintain it. But also, there's something to be said for not having too many places for people to have to come and contribute. I would like to reduce the number of places. So if it turns out that people are really reluctant to leave Discord, I might do some bridging across so that we can have everybody in basically the same place. Maintaining the Discord can be distributed to others. I would rather not do that because I kind of want to maintain a certain sort of tone, I suppose, in the community. And I feel like if I'm not there, I can't really help with that. So I'd rather, if I'm going to have an official communication channel for the community, I want to be there and to help, basically. The last thing I wanted to mention, so I mentioned a few times, both in the video on Tuesday and also just now, that one of the things about IRC is you don't have history for things that have happened in chat rooms. So if you disconnect from an IRC server and then reconnect to it, you don't see what happened while you were gone. There is a way to get around this by using a tool called an IRC Bouncer, which is basically a server that you set up to connect to the IRC server on your behalf, and then you connect your IRC client to this Bouncer server, which basically just stays connected and just keeps the activity that's going on in the channel so that when you reconnect from your client, it replays all this information to you so that you can see what happened while you were gone. And just a bunch of other stuff. So they're pretty useful. A lot of people use them if they're really sort of invested in IRC. And I also set one up for myself because I want to try this out. One thing that I'm considering doing is providing this as a service to sponsors of the channel. So if you're at like a $5 tier and above, it would be just something that you would get as part of, being a sponsor. And the reason why I'm setting it at this tier is because it sort of costs money to host a VM to run this. And the more people who join, the more resources it might take. I don't really know how much it's going to take yet, but this is sort of my assumption, is that things will scale to a point where I'll have to get like a bigger server or something. So I'm just trying to factor in the costs of maintaining that into account. So what I want is for any of you existing $5 or above sponsors, I'm looking for maybe 5 to 10 people who want to try the IRC Bouncer. If you want to spend time in IRC, just send me a message or an email. Let me know that you want to try it, and I'll try to set you up. We're trying to come up with a more smooth process for getting it set up, because there's a little bit of manual effort that's required right now to go in and configure things. So I'm trying to find a way to automate that. So it might be a thing where I'm trying to work with you to try some things to automate setting stuff up. But definitely let me know if you're interested in that. So Pavel says, do you plan to publish IRC chat logs somewhere? Maybe. I don't know. Chat logs are good and bad, I think, because the difference is with chat logs, typically you're posting them somewhere publicly, and anybody could just search them on the web. I mean, it could be nice for some reason, but I think it also changes the way that people chat in the channel if you think that you're going to be logged forever. So I don't know that I want to make public logs of the channels at this moment, and I would appreciate if people don't try to log the channels and publish them anywhere at the moment. Well, we may change that in the future, or we may have certain channels of the System Crafter as sort of namespace on IRC where we do logging, but maybe the main System Crafter channel we won't. So I'm definitely open to feedback on that if anybody has ideas, because I want to make this the best experience possible, and also make sure that any useful conversations people are having are not lost. So logging does make sense from that perspective. I just want to make sure that people's privacy, I guess you could call it privacy to some degree, is protected. The reason why Discord is different is because you can't go search for the logs of a Discord server publicly on the web. You have to actually join the server and then go look yourself. So there's at least an extra step involved to go see what people have been talking about on that server. So it's just a thing to keep in mind for people who haven't really considered that. I think that was everything. But yeah, I'm just really happy with how things have been going in the IRC so far. I've been having a lot of fun in there with everyone who's been there. Thank you to everybody who's joined so far. And it just, kind of makes me feel really good about the system crafters community as a whole. Like I'm happy that people are willing to try new things and come and actually contribute and be willing to help. And I don't know, it just feels like a really nice place to be. So I'm very proud of what we've got here at the moment. Let's see. Let me jump over to the next thing. So the next topic that I want to talk about today, and I'm not going to go deep into this right now. I want people to have time to ask questions and whatnot. But we're going to talk about how to improve the IRC experience in ERC. There's a lot of configuration stuff I did not get to cover in the video on Tuesday, so I want to spend some time looking at some other things you might want to do to actually get a better experience for dealing with IRC inside of Emacs using the ERC client. Before that, let me just check on the chat here. So let's see. Hey, Truth for Life. Gon asks, beside bouncing, can you capture like an IRSSI? You can capture logs for yourself, but if you're not connected to the server, then you won't see what's happening while you're gone. Truth said that he skipped work, or they skipped work to make the stream. Well, you shouldn't skip work. I can understand watching it while you're at work, because I know that I watch streams at work sometimes, but you definitely don't skip work. You don't want to put your job at risk just to watch this. I appreciate it, though. Hey, Henrik. Let's see. Anders says Oracle have ARM VMs for free to a certain level. Yeah, I mean, VMs are fairly cheap if you start off small, so it's not that big of a deal. But I think usually free VMs are very underpowered and also may be limited on bandwidth. And bandwidth is important when you have a constantly connected service that is actually connecting connecting many instances of another service. A lot of sort of connections going on, so I don't want to have that be a bottleneck. Let's see. Anders says everything is logging, so not logging would be nice. Good stuff can be moved to Wikibot. Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's I think that's sort of one reason why the wiki popped up around the same time is that really I think that it's nice that you can search for stuff in Discord history to see where people have discussed certain things, but at the same time, the chat history is not a good place to store information for future use. If we think that there's useful information, there should be an easy way to store that info somewhere. Someone, I can't remember who, suggested the idea of having a bash.org-like thing for the System Crafters chat, where you could basically copy a certain subsection of chat that happened in the server where somebody's talking about something useful, or maybe there's a conversation about a particular topic, and then post it somewhere so that that specific bit of context can be searched and be looked at on a website. So that's something that's useful. Also, the wiki, people going and adding things to the wiki is also very useful. If you learn something new that you think other people might need, then you can go easily add it to the wiki. So I think that's really, I think it's a better strategy than depending on history in chat. If you can make it a habit to go and put the useful information somewhere that people can find and is actually organized effectively. So the wiki is a good option for that. Swapnil says, is there any way to set up encryption in ERC? Well, you can set up encryption between you and the IRC server if the server supports SSL or TLS. I think it's basically the same thing. You just have to use ERC-TLS to connect to the server. Then it will establish an encrypted connection to the server. Now, when you do that, the things that you type in the server that other people see aren't encrypted. So anybody who's there sees unencrypted stuff. So it's only really the connection between you and the IRC server that's encrypted. But that's important for... it's important for you sending your password to the server, so at least you need that to happen. Let's see. The truth says, in the military, can't watch it work. Yeah, well, I can understand that. Let's see. Tomas says, I was listening to the permanent record audiobook from Snowden before you switched over here. Yeah, so you probably have plenty of ideas in your head about privacy at the moment. Gon says, org capture ERC. It could be interesting. Wow, thanks, Henrik. I appreciate the super chat of 100. I'm guessing that's Denmark. I don't really know the currency markers here, but I'm guessing this is Denmark kronens or something. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm probably saying the wrong thing. So let's see. Hackintosh Matrix says, what distro do you use? I use GNU Geeks. You probably watch a few of the videos I have on this channel to learn more about that. It's a pretty interesting distro. Tomas says, we are also distilling the knowledge coming up on our company Slack into Notion regularly. Works well so far. Yeah, Notion is pretty interesting. Has really good features for displaying information in various different ways. I mean, you can liken it to org mode in that you can do that in org mode as well, but org mode is not very easy for teams to use whenever they're not very familiar with Emacs. So Notion is a good tool for teams when you don't have that kind of thing. Matthew says, we don't use pins as much as we should in the Discord. Yeah, I don't really know the right use cases for pins because I never see pins. I know that there's a button you can click to look at the pins, but yeah, I haven't really used Discord enough outside of the System Crafter server to really see how other people use it. So if you have suggestions, I mean, you're a mod. You can go and pin things if you want to, I think. Let me know if you can't do that. Adrian says, org capture is very useful on its own. Yeah, org capture is great, but we have to have a way to post that stuff. Ander says, DK is Danish kroner. Okay, thank you. Benoit says that wiki may be the best pins. Yeah, I think... oh, Danish, yes. Yeah, the wiki is definitely the best way to pin things because at least there's an organized location to put information. Now, the wiki that currently is... Let me actually just pull that up so that you can see what it looks like at the moment. Let me get out of this. Come on, Q browser. Let's go. All right. wiki.systemcrafters.cc. Side note, I'm trying to get systemcrafters.com. Somebody has owned it forever, and I'm trying to negotiate with them to get it. So hopefully that will work. So this is the System Crafters wiki at the moment. It looks basically like systemcrafters.cc because we're just using the same theme. It's also a site that's written in org mode files. And we've got a couple of topic areas, like an area for GNU Emacs. It's got some information here that might be helpful to you. And then a whole section on GNU Geeks. The caster has spent a lot of effort writing some stuff up here, especially an installation guide for people who are trying to use the full Linux kernel. So there's a lot of stuff here if you want to learn how to do that. We're also going to have a video on that pretty soon too. But this is a good place to look for information. Obviously, there's not much here yet, but I'm hoping that other people in the community will come and contribute as they feel they have something useful. I've asked a couple other people who I know have figured out some useful things recently to come and contribute to it. So I think we'll have some more things here soon. If you want to contribute, you can go to github.com/systemcrafters/wiki-site. And that is the GitHub repo for this wiki. If you go into the content folder, all the org files are here. They're just organized in folders. So you go into the Geeks folder, and then there's different org files. And all of these get turned into a website whenever we merge those PRs for this back into master. So it's not quite as easy as another wiki site where you can just click an edit button and then save your changes immediately. At least on this one, if you go to, let's say if I go to the Emacs index page here, on GitHub at least, there's an edit button over on the right-hand side of the display of the page. If you click edit, then you can go in and edit the file however you like. You can see a preview of your changes, and then you can also go down and create a commit. Since I have commit access to the repo, it tells me I can commit directly to main, but for you, if you don't have commit access, it will tell you, it will basically automate the process of creating a PR for you. So that's an easy way to contribute to this without ever having to clone the Git repository, in case you wanted to try to do that. So I'll drop a link to this into the chat. Thanks a lot, Tomas, for the 118. I'm guessing that is... I'm going to get this wrong, but it looks like Hong Kong, maybe. I don't know if it's that. I'm American, so obviously I'm blind to what the rest of the world is doing, obviously. Let's see. Okay, so did I post that? Yeah, I pasted it in the chat. I'm also going to drop it into the show notes in case anybody else wants to go there. Let's do that with an exclamation point. Okay. Cool. Let's see. Hong Kong dollar. Yeah, that's what I thought, but you know, you can never be sure. YouTube doesn't really help us out here with the display on these things. I see other streamers being kind of confused about what currency is being sent on these super chats. Let's see. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Pavel says Zimbabwe dollars are my favorite. How do they describe Zimbabwe dollars? Pedro says my tab just crashed. Yeah, that's basically computers and browsers. They're great. All right, so let's talk about improving the IRC experience in ERC. So what I'm going to show you here is sort of a combination of things that I have put together in my own configuration over the years, and also some things that I picked up from other people in the System Crafters chat over the last week, and also some things that we've been sort of working on in the chat there to improve the experience for everyone. I noticed my webcam is moving really slowly, so I apologize for that. I don't know exactly what's going on. Let's just consult Procad for a second and see if we can tell. Oh, geez. Here we go again. Yeah, it's just OBS as usual. And Firefox. Oh, you know what? I know what's happening. Once again. Undo, please. Okay. There we go. I think I closed the chat window by accident. Let me just grab that back. So the nice thing about YouTube streaming is that whenever you start streaming and you're using their page for managing your live stream, they're playing a preview of the video on the live stream at the same time as you're streaming it, and it at least in my case, it takes up CPU, so it makes the stream more choppy because it's doing that, which is really stupid. All right, so let's get on to the main topic then, about improving the display of, or the IRC experience in IRC. Simon says a new version of OBS just got released. Yes, I'm actually using the latest RC of OBS 27. I haven't updated to the latest yet, but it did fix an issue I've been having for a while with camera freezing. So that has been very helpful. Thank you very much, Anders, for the $100. I'm guessing this is from Sweden, the currency. Another Scandinavian currency. Thank you very much. So let's see. Okay, improving display of messages. So I'm gonna do this with a, let's see, a different Emacs configuration. I'm gonna try to do it a little bit more like a from scratch thing where, you know, we're starting from the configuration that I had put together on the video on Tuesday, but we're gonna add some things to it to make it better looking. Hopefully this is visible enough. Let me know if the font needs to be enlarged a little. So one thing I forgot to do here before I set it all up is I need to pull in use package. So let me just go back to my package management section. I'm just going to grab my package.el setup. Drishal says, does YouTube not convert it to the streamer's native currency? After the fact they do, but they don't, when they display it, they're displaying it in the source currency. So let's take everything up to right here and then go drop it in over in this configuration. The nice thing now is I'm going to be switching between Vim and Emacs key binding, so we're going to see very quickly whether I'm going to screw this up or not. So is it Alt-W? Nope. And now I probably lost it. Okay, so let's go copy it again because I am not doing a good job with switching between key bindings at the moment. So Control-Y. Thank you, finally. All right, so let me get rid of some of this stuff because it's not really needed. I do want that, and I'm hoping this doesn't like completely kill the setup when I do this. Okay, so I need to make sure that this is installed, but I'm gonna get rid of this part here. I should move this over so that it's visible in the other screen at the same time. Let me do that. I want to drop it over here. Yeah, Alt-Y, thanks, Ivan. All right, so let's pull it here, and then I'm going to turn on toggle input, EXW and toggle input keyboard. Okay, so now I can see the chat at the same time. That's great. Oh boy. All of a sudden, that Emacs session is not responding. Okay, here we go, finally. Whew. I was worried that things were going to lock up for a second. Drashal asks again, videos on straight.el when? Soon. It's going to be probably in the very near future. I keep saying that, I know. Okay, so I pulled in the package.el config. Obviously, this is something you probably already have set up. I just had to pull it in here because I've started a new config that is basic, that doesn't have use package set up by default, and I need to add it just for this right now. So let me put this right here. So Control Y, and then I'll go and evaluate it really quickly. So what is the eval region key binding by default? It might take a second because it needs to go install stuff. Probably shouldn't have added all those archives too. Just Melpa would be enough. Ivan says, nice mug. Yeah, that was actually the other mug. This is the one you're probably thinking of. Control X, Control E works for at the end of the line. Is it also for region? Oops. Control X, Control E. Do it. This eval last S expression. I don't know if it deals with regions though. Okay, yeah, it doesn't seem to say anything about regions. Ah, Ivan says, I was referring to you becoming transparent. Yeah, it's my special cup that you can see through. It's great. Okay, so now I've got package.el installed. Now I'll go back to what I was doing before. Oh, great, we have custom set variables. I love that. So let me pull up the presentation. And then I'll split this window to about right there. And then I can pull the Emacs session back up. All right. I'm probably going to miss some things in here. Let me actually close out of the presentation and just use org mode directly. Okay. So let's connect to IRC really quickly and see how it goes. So ERC-TLS, we're just doing the same thing that we did in the video on Tuesday. Got everything set up the way I wanted to. I don't need a password because this is a fake account. So now we're connecting basically to LibreChat. And what I'm going to do is join the System Crafters chat after I do this. So System Crafters. And I think it'll pull me up in that buffer. Okay, so nice. Looks like we have a lot of people here. Oh, wait, hold on. This is Emacs. Why am I in Emacs? Okay. System Crafters. Okay. So first of all, one thing you notice here is that in the chat, all of the all of the messages are lined up to the left side of the buffer, and all of the text sort of starts at the end of the person's name. So in my case, I kind of would prefer if the presentation here was a little bit better, so that I'm sort of looking at the messages sort of all starting at the same column location on the screen, and then the names are sort of organized so that they line up together. And that's what the ERC fill settings can do for you. Now, there's a few different ways to do this. I'm going to show you the way that I do it, and then maybe we will experiment with others as well. So first of all, I'm going to grab this little bit of config here. I'm going to go back into init.el. And then I'll drop this in. We'll just put it in here afterwards. Oh, what did I just do? Control /. I did not press Alt. There we go. Jeez. Okay, I'll copy it again. Like I said, this is going to be very fun for me trying to translate back and forth between bindings. Obviously, I could just install evil mode, but where's the fun in that? So Control Y, because I always forget the right one. Okay, so ERC Fill Column. Let's look at the description of this variable really quickly. So the default value is 78, but it's the column at which a filled paragraph is broken. So if you go into a chat channel and you say something like test, let me copy that really quickly. I'm just going to do a bunch of tests. I know this is going to be really annoying to the people who are in the channel. You can see that the text gets wrapped at a particular column location, but I have a lot of extra space on the screen here where I could have that text be wider if I wanted to. And if you want to change that, you need to set the ERC Fill Column to a higher value. So in my case, I have it set to 120 because typically, like if you look at my actual chat for the System Crafters chat, it goes all the way to this part of the screen. It could go longer too, but I don't really want it to be too long. But generally what you want is to give it a little bit more space so that maybe you can see more text from more people on the screen at the same time. There's also the fill function, which is kind of an interesting setting. If we look at that, it tells us that, well, let's do that here maybe. Yeah, ERC fill function. It tells us that the function to use for filling messages. So you can customize this to be whatever you want, and it may actually allow you to do even more things than you would imagine. Let's see. So there's a few different ways that you can customize this art with built-in stuff, and then you could actually pass your own function, because I think the value of this variable is a function. So the default value is ERC fill variable. If we go look at that function, it basically just says fill from point min to point max. I don't know why that's the case. I think it probably does still use the fill column for that, but ERC fill function. But there's other possible built-in values for this, which would be ERC Fill Prefix. So let's see that. Okay, so if you set ERC Fill Prefix, apparently it will line up text to where the nick is. So instead of having it wrap, actually maybe that's what it was already doing. Let me see what it looks like here. Yeah, so it's filling up to that prefix right now, but you can change the ERC Fill Prefix if you wanted to have a different string as the prefix at the front. So you can have it to be 4 spaces to where it will drop the text back down to this level. You could have it be some other character that you wanted to display for fill, like an arrow or something, whatever you want. You can also set the fill function to be fill static center, which is interesting because it does this thing that you see in my configuration here, where you see all the messages are lined up together at the same column, and then all the nicks are sort of lined up against that. So that is, to me, a better way to look at this, because at least you have one column where your eyes will fall to look at the text that's on the screen, and then all the names of people will sort of fit in the gap on the left-hand side. So if I were to go change that right now, let me just get out of this help real quick. We'll go down to the bottom of the buffer, and I will go back to init.el. Pavel says long lines are harder to read. Yeah, it could be. It really is up to you how you want to set that up. So what I'm doing here, I'm changing the ERC fill function to ERC fill static, and I'm changing the static center to 20. So I'm basically giving 20 characters in. So on the 20th character, that column, that's where the text for all messages will start. So if I were to evaluate this right now, Control-X, Control-E, and go back over to the System Crafters buffer, any new messages, I think, are going to automatically start being filled in that way because we've changed that value of the fill function. So you'll see that any other messages that people send at this point, I'm sure somebody will say something in a second, will also be lined up at the same column. So already you have a view that that is a bit more nice looking, I guess. And yeah, as you can see, these 3 messages all came in, they're lined up correctly, and the changes take place immediately. You don't have to do anything special to make this work. You can just experiment with the settings for this as you're in IRC and see how you like what the things look like. So I think that's all for that. I think someone was asking Shom right now if there's anything else for okay, so Shom says there's no ERC fill column. So let's see, what is that in? ERC fill column. Master Roman says it would be great if previous messages would automatically rewrap. Well, that would be nice, but I think that it would require some extra code to make that happen. So it's an ERC fill. You may have to require ERC fill. I have no idea why it wouldn't be required by default. I have not had to add anything extra to make that show up. So, hey, Eric. So let's see, what's next? So customizing activity tracking. So one thing I did mention, Ivan, nice to know that that's you. I appreciate you letting me know. So the tracking information here in the mode line, as you can see here, I have Emacs showing up here. That's because the Oh, okay. Okay, thanks, Ashrez. I'll put that in a second. Hey, Mjolnir's Revenge. So whenever there's activity in an IRC buffer or in a query buffer that you're not currently in, you'll get this little marker in the mode line if you have tracking turned on, which I think is turned on by default. So if we look at the ERC modules list, I think that track is already here. So there's a lot of stuff that's already, whoa, did I add some things? Yeah, track is here in the original value, completions, a lot of other things that are already here by default. So those should be pulled up whenever you start up ERC, unless you've changed the ERC modules variable. Yeah. Show them, did you customize ERC modules? I think that's probably the reason why this is not working right for you. So take a look at anyone who's messing with ERC. Make sure that you have not set the ERC modules variable to something else, because you may not have functionality enabled that we're seeing here because you don't have that module being loaded. Okay, so back to tracking. We know that tracking is turned on by default, and I'm going to show you some variables you can use to control which channels actually get tracked, and also what kind of activity in the channels causes the track to show up on, or the tracking signifier, I suppose you could say, to show up in the mode line whenever those channels are active. So one thing you could do in general is, if there are, let's say you join a lot of channels when you start IRC, but you don't want to be annoyed by the ones that are very active that you don't really spend time in. Like for instance, I joined the Emacs channel, but I don't really, I don't sit in there because there's so much activity that it would just distract me all day. So I only want to be notified whenever things are happening in the System Scrappers channel and maybe a couple other channels, basically. So thanks, Eric. Probably we're not missing anything, but we'll see. Okay. So you can set specific channels to be excluded from tracking. And I think this also applies to names of people as well, by setting the ERC track exclude variable to a list of names of channels and possibly the names of users. So if I wanted to not have this Emacs be here, what I could do is go to my init.el, and I could add, let me just pull these in really quickly. Man, this is messing with my head, switching between key bindings setups. I want to press Control Y here to pull this in, but I'm going to comment this out. Whoops. Comment that out temporarily. Now, come on, dude. What's this? I think I'm in insert mode or something. ERC. There we go. Okay. Weird. Close that off. I'm going to use Control X, Control E here to set Emacs as the one. I'll switch the Emacs buffer first so that we can see that, yeah, we're going to have some activity in here for this to work, but maybe I can set it to System Crafters and we'll try it with that. So let me go back to init.el. So I'll put System Crafters here, as sad as it sounds, System Crafters. I'm going to add it to the exclude list. And now I've evaluated it. I don't have keycast set up here. I'm sorry for that. I'm using Control X, Control E to evaluate that line. So I'm using Control X, Control B to switch back to the System Crafters buffer. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is jump back to init.el. So someone sends some messages in the System Crafters channel right now. In fact, I could do it myself here. Testing. All right, so if I go back to here, we see now we don't see any notification from the System Crafters channel. But if I were to go back and remove that from that list, Control X, Control E, and then I go here, test again, then you'll see I have a notification from System Crafters. So useful in case you want to participate in a channel, but you don't want to be notified when there's activity because maybe it's just very noisy and you don't want to see that in your mode line all day long. It's kind of useful. I think it's nice to be in channels and be able to go look at them every now and then, but not be pestered by them, I guess. That said, I think if someone mentions you, it may override that. We'll have to check on that in a minute. Another thing is that you can exclude certain types of activity from being tracked. So for instance, if you want any type of activity where someone joins a channel, leaves a channel, quits IRC, if you want all that stuff to not cause tracking for you, you can set this ERC track exclude types variable. By default, there's only a couple things that it sets, but you can also add other actions to it. I don't think it gives you a full list of things. So you would basically have to look up, I guess, I don't really know what they're called. They're like IRC what? Let's see. Was it IRC actions? I don't know. Let's see. IRC actions join part. They're not commands. They're, okay, message filter. Maybe it's what it is. So IRC join message. Example IRC community. Okay, so yeah. Users connected to an IRC service can join existing channels by using the join message. That's a command, right? Somebody in the chat probably knows this. Oh, okay, here we go. So yeah, you're sending messages that are prefixed with a certain type of command. One of them could be nick, one could be user, one could be join, and you see those in a channel whenever someone joins. But you can cause those to be ignored whenever you add these action names or message names to the exclude types list. So in this case, if someone were to leave, you know, the thing is, I haven't seen this actually work for me. So we're going to try it out right now and see if it works. So I'm going to unbalance parentheses. What did I do wrong? Oh, yeah, I got that one there. Okay. So I'm going to evaluate this. I'm missing part. No, that's a good point, actually. That may explain why I have been seeing noise. Part. Thank you for telling me that, Benoit. All right, so I'm going to evaluate that again. And I'm going to go into the System Crafters channel. Whoops. Come on. System Crafters channel. All right, so now I'm going to... So here's what I want to do. Everybody don't talk for a second in the System Crafters channel. I want to try something. So I'm going to go back to init.el. And then I'm going to part the channel. So now it did not give me any notification in the System Crafters channel. But if someone were to write a message now, I should get a notification in the channel saying that there was a message. So I can try to join again. Let's see if I go to, let's go into this channel really quickly. And then I will join System Crafters. All right, so now I'm back in System Crafters. Right there. And there is a System C notification. That's probably because Drashal had said something in the channel. So that's very nice because now you won't be pestered whenever somebody just joins and leaves. And one thing you might notice if you're in IRC all day is that there's a lot of these messages saying that somebody has quit or they've joined the channel or left the channel. The reason why is because when, like, let's say you're using IRC on a laptop and you close your laptop, that causes you to be disconnected from the server. So if someone is using IRC on a laptop or maybe a mobile device, you'll see them connecting and disconnecting all day long. So you can hide that stuff from your tracking by doing that. There's also a way to hide it from the channel as well. What is that variable name? I think it's hide, ERC hide. Let's see. So if I were to use Control H V ERC hide list. Yeah, so you can use ERC hide list. If you don't ever want to see this information about people joining or leaving, you can set this to a list very similar to this one we see here. In fact, I could do that right now. So ERC hide list. And I actually need to copy this over to the other config. So let's see, init.el, that's right. Okay, so here I can add this into this list, Control Y, and then Control X, Control E. And now whenever someone leaves the chat, it won't actually give me a notification. So part, oops. And then, yeah, we didn't get any notification when I left the chat. Oh, I'm sorry, I should actually jump back in the chat now. Join System Crafters. Okay, and then I'll go back to System Crafters channel. Okay. Now if I go back to, oh, come on, XB, there we go, System Crafters. Yeah, part I left, I forgot to put it back in the list, but we can see that we're seeing leave messages because I forgot that in the init list. So basically if I were to put part here, then we wouldn't see parts either. So it just gives you control over what you see in the chat. So maybe some of that annoying message noise goes away. It's just something for you to know in case that does bother you. So let's see, what next? Also, there is a variable called IRC Track Exclude Server Buffer. And I find this to be kind of helpful because whenever you connect to an IRC network in Emacs, there will be a buffer that gets created to give you server status, and you'll get things in that buffer from time to time, like maybe if there's a notification from the server, or if you run a specific command and it sends the output of the command to the server buffer instead of into your current buffer. Probably you don't want to be notified about that stuff. And also whenever you reconnect or connect, sometimes it leaves you with noise and you have to go and jump back to those buffers to make the thing go away. It's just kind of annoying. So if you want those server buffers to not give you track information on the mode line, you can use this IRC Track Exclude Server Buffer, and that will turn off the tracking for those buffers. It's kind of debatable on whether you should do this or not, because sometimes you do need to know when things happen in the server buffer. Like for instance, if you get disconnected, or maybe there's like a net split or something, whenever the network has an issue and nodes in the network are disconnected from each other. But I would say most times it's better to not be bothered by notifications from that buffer. So it's just really up to you about whether you want to turn that off or not. One last thing, which is kind of useful if you are like me and you use IRC or EXWM, or if you like to use multiple frames in Emacs in any other context, and maybe you have your IRC buffers on a particular frame, and then in a different frame you're doing your work or something. There is a variable called IRC Track Visibility that will control. It will basically dictate how IRC thinks that you've seen a buffer's update or not. And what I mean by that is, whenever you're in the channel, like let's say if I'm inside of the System Crafters channel, if I can jump back to it, I keep hitting buttons that confuse the key binding system. So if you're here in the channel and someone sends a message or does something, you will not get tracking information for this channel, because you are currently in the buffer and there's no reason to notify you of activity in a buffer that you're currently looking at. However, you can be in a buffer in a frame, but not actually have that frame selected. That is definitely the case in EXWM whenever you have multiple workspaces, because each workspace is a frame, and technically speaking, that buffer may be open in that frame, but since you're not actively in that frame, you don't see it. So you want to be notified of activity in the channel whenever you're not on that workspace. So there is thanks Benoit for helping me to verify that. So you can set this IRC Track Visibility to some different values to determine how IRC decides whether you saw something activity in a channel before it gives you those markers in the mode line. So if I were to go look at the documentation for IRC Track Visibility, if I can type today, okay. So by default, it's set to T, which means it does want to track visibility. So where do we look for buffers to determine their visibility? The value of this variable determines when a buffer is considered visible or invisible. The possible values are T, meaning that if the buffer is visible in any frame, then it's considered visible. So that means if you have two frames open side by side and one of them has a chat buffer open and something happens there, it will not give you a tracking thing in your mode line. Visible means all visible frames. So that if the frame, let's say the frame is minimized and it's not visible currently, then it won't count as being visible. Nil means only the selected frame. And this is the one that's sort of important for the EXWM use case, because the last one is selected visible, only the selected frame if it is visible. I don't know what the distinction is between those two, but I use nil, and that's the one that I think worked for me the right way, but maybe selected visible is also the right one. Eric, I'll answer your question in just a moment. So keep an eye on this variable if you have issues where maybe you get tracking information when you don't mean to, or maybe you don't get tracking information whenever you expected to get it. It may just be that you need to set this variable to the right value. You should definitely try nil if you use multiple frames, I think. Shom says, I want to track the lag between all these systems. IRC to Matrix, IRC to YouTube video feed, and back. The ultimate lag is typing in IRC and David reading it. Yeah. Well, it's also because I'm going through an IRC bouncer to the IRC server. So there's a lot of latency involved here, I think. There's also a variable called ERC Track when inactive. What does that mean? Enable channel tracking even for visible buffers if you are inactive. So I guess this means if you haven't interacted with an IRC buffer in a while, even if it's visible, it will give you tracking info. That could be useful. It's nil by default, so you might want to try turning that on too if you have trouble with the tracking info not showing up when you expect it to. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Tracking specific keywords or people. I haven't actually tried this yet, so we're going to try it now. I know that there are lists of variables that you can use for this, so we're going to check them out. The name of the variables are a little bit weird, but I'll talk about that in a second. So if you look at the IRC Pals list, this is a list that's nil by default, but it's a list of people who you want to be, or you want to have their names highlighted whenever the, it's really interesting that this is doing the name colorization already. Aw. Anyway, excuse me. So if you set this to have people's names in this list, then their names will be highlighted whenever they talk in the channel. So what if I go into, let's see, Control Alt, yeah, there we go. Set queue, ERC Pals. Let's put a list here. Let's see, Shom, Masteroman, Benoit J. All right, so now if any of those three people talk, which I'm sure in about 10 seconds they'll see what I'm saying and respond, I think that it's supposed to highlight their names. We're going to find out in a second whether that works or not. In the meantime, I'm going to look at this. Okay, so I think it did work. So Shom's name actually is like in a hot pink color. I don't know why it's using that, but okay. So all three of these people, they have their names highlighted in a certain way. Now, obviously, the other names have colors. I don't know why the colors are set up automatically. We'll take a look at that in a second because I didn't expect that to just be working by default. There must be some other reason why. So this is in the ERC match library, and there's a few other variables that you can set and some other settings in here as well. So let me jump back to the System Crafter channel. The next one, I want to, yeah, well, see, I don't have it in this configuration yet, Ashraz. I don't know why all of a sudden it's on, because I was supposed to be adding that later and it's not supposed to be on. So let's actually see. Yeah, let's check ERC modules. So Control HV, highlight, whoops, ERC modules. So I do, oh, HL Nix. I don't know why that's there. We're going to find out though, because it's very weird. I don't think I actually set that variable up. And, jeez. Control XB, thank you. Thank you, jeez. All right, so let's check. Yeah, I'm literally not setting it. I don't know if it's catching an auto load. Oh, that's why. Okay. So there's a little bit of a config snafu here. Let me think of the right way to do this. I'm going to bail out of this session for a second because I want to make this as realistic as possible. I'm going to jump over to my vterm, if I can find it. Vterm, okay. Let me check. Emacs. There we go. Okay, that's the right one. But I also want to... No, sir. Thank you. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, vterm send cx. This is real fun. And then vterm send, no, is it Control C, Control X, exit? See, if I have to do it this way, vterm send cg, okay, vterm send Control C. I know I should be using the key bindings, but some of these don't have bindings. Send CX. Get me out of here, man. Oh my god. Okay. Obviously, I did it the wrong way. Control C. Good. Jeez. Okay, so I screwed up the invocation here. I had a thing here I shouldn't have had in my history. Here we're going to get it the right way. And I have a problem in my init file. That's fantastic. Control X, Control C. You know, you'd think that since I pressed that pretty often in Emacs, I would remember, but when I have to do it in a way that defeats my muscle memory, then I have problems. All right, so let's toggle keyboard again so I can send key bindings here. Let's go into init.el, projects code, bear Emacs, init.el. All right, so I think I screwed up something down here at the bottom. Probably not that one, not that one. It's got to be this custom set variables stuff that they put in here, which I kind of want to just delete. Check parens. Okay, something's wrong here. Too many? Yeah, okay, fine. One more time, check parens. All right, good. So let's just get out of that and reopen it one more time. Okay, yeah, I would prefer it if vterm had a way to go into like care mode, like other things do, like exwm or maybe term mode, but it doesn't support that as far as I know. Okay, so now we're gonna go ERC TLS one more time. ERC TLS. And then we're gonna rejoin, and then we're gonna join system crafters whenever this finally gets set up. Okay. And now I'm going to jump to the system crafters buffer whenever it finally, okay, wait a minute, hold on. There we go. Okay, so now whenever people talk, I think that the names will not be highlighted by default. And I'll tell you why that happened. Well, let's check to make sure it's not gonna happen first, and then I'll tell you why it happened. So test. If anybody else, okay, so I think they're not being highlighted anymore. So whenever you use Geeks and you install Emacs packages with Geeks, it will set up your Emacs load path environment variable and pull in things from your personal profile, even if you're trying to avoid it using something like Emacs 2. So I have to go and override the Emacs load path environment variable to take those profile folders out so that it doesn't pick up the packages that I've installed on my own personal configuration. So it's just another little wrinkle in this whole thing. So the configuration I've added so far for ERC does not actually have HL_nix turned on, as you can see. All right, so now back to what we were doing, if I can remember. Okay, so I had set ERC Pals. Next, what I'm going to do, let's actually set that back again. I'll put it in the config this time so that we can see it. I don't think I have that open yet. So let's go, once again, we're going to go back to projects, code, bear Emacs, init.el. I'll go down here, and I'm going to set, I'll just drop it in another section here. I don't want to have to keep making set queues. ERC Pals. I'll put the same list. Show Master Roman. Okay. So now I'm also going to set ERC Fools, which is kind of a rude name, but okay. I'm going to put myself in there, my actual other account, and then I'm going to reevaluate this. And then I'm going to go back into System Crafters, and then I'm going to go say something. So, am I a fool? Well, it didn't actually ERC fool. Oh, is that right? Okay, I screwed that up. Let's go back to init.el. Is that right? Hold on. Okay, so it's a variable. Oh, what? Didn't get set. I swear I evaluated that. Maybe I didn't. Okay, so it's set now. Let's try this one more time because it won't work on old Foobles. Wow. Okay. It won't work on old messages. So I have to send a new message. Okay, so now what you see is that it basically darkens the name of the person who said it so that it gives you the indication that you should just ignore what they say. I'm guessing that basically the idea is that if there's someone who is particularly annoying in a channel and you wanted to just like unhighlight their name or make it so that it's obvious you just want to skip over those lines, then that's something you could do. But I don't really like the idea of that variable name. I'm not a fool. Yeah, thank you for that. All right, so there's also ERC match. Let's check out the settings for that. So let me check. I haven't actually looked this up yet. Tools would be more useful if it also dims their text. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it would be better if you could control the text color as well. So ERC match in general, So ERC match enable. Let's look at the documentation, then I'll jump to the code real quick. I need to figure out what you can do to set up. Okay, keywords, ERC keywords. That's actually the one that you want to set for that. So ERC keywords. If we look at that variable, it's nil by default, but it's actually a list of regular expressions or a const cell with a regular expression in the car and the face to use in the cooter. So basically, you can set what face to use for particular words. If no specified word is specified, no face is specified, use ERC keyword face instead. So what I'm going to do is set up, let's see. Master Roma says ERC full star dark mode on. Yeah, there's better ways to do that, I think. So let's go back to init.el, and I'm going to set ERC keywords, and I'll say geeks. What else can I say here that would be fun? Wiki, I don't know, something. So I will go ahead and evaluate this, and now if I go back into the channel and say I love geeks, let's see if it actually highlights it. Okay, so it did find the right one, even though the casing of what I put in was different. So if you want to be highlighted, or if you want something to be highlighted in channels whenever somebody talks about a particular topic, like maybe a package that you work on, or something that you have special knowledge about, then you can set ERC keywords to track those. So let me actually just update the notes here. ERC keywords. And I'm going to set this as a to-do for myself because I need to go back and copy in the things that I had set up for that. This is the one that I didn't have time to put something together for before I started. Okay, so that's also pretty useful. And like I said, you can use full regular expressions. So if you wanted to match a more complicated pattern in text, you could do that as well. I don't know if those will give you any notifications. It would be useful if they did, but I'm not exactly sure. We're going to find out in just a second, though. Shom says, does ERC Pals support regex? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. ERC Pals. So it doesn't give you any indication of whether it does or not. See you, Benoit. So ERC Pals. Oh, come on, man. ERC Pals. Where's this used? ERC Pals, Control S. Add Pal. Okay, so there's functions you can use to interactively add them, but I think it's going to add those to the customization variables, and I don't really like that very much. I think they have special match functions that are being used. ERC match list, ERC Pals, nick user host. Okay, so probably. Wait, hold on. My fingers are getting confused with the key binding situation here. ERC, jeez, oh, come on, man. ERC list match. I think the problem is I keep hitting escape to get out of things. All right, so ERC list match, that is defined. How about I look for, hello, defun ERC list match. Okay, it's not in this file, apparently. It must be in another file. Anyway, I don't know if it supports regular expressions. It might not. So let's go back to the System Crackers chat. Oh, and one thing I just noticed is that when one of the people that you have set up as pals is talking here, it seems that it changes the face of the text of the mode line indicator as well to say that somebody that is a pal of yours has actually said something. So I feel like that is a pretty useful feature, because then you know if like a friend of yours, or maybe like an operator in the channel, or somebody that you're waiting to talk to says something in a channel, then you get a separate face that is shown for that channel in the track list. So that's pretty cool. All right, so maybe you want to get pinged in your desktop environment whenever somebody mentions you. So there is a way to do that. There's a module called notifications you can enable that will do desktop notifications for when you get mentioned. Probably some other things as well. We're going to find out now because I haven't really tested it yet. So what I'm going to do is grab this line, jump back into the init.el, and then I'm just going to drop it in right here. And this is going to add notifications to the list of modules, but I don't know if it actually activates it immediately. We may have to run another function. So if somebody could try to mention Davy will test, or maybe I can do it myself. Let's see. So far, I don't see a desktop notification for being mentioned. What I'm going to do now is run a function that may be necessary whenever you change the modules list. It's called IRC Update Modules. This is a function and not a command, so you're going to have to use Alt:, or evaluate it directly in an Emacs list buffer because it is a function. Oh, whoops, Update Modules. Yeah, so now if I were to do it again, they will test hello. Okay, I get a notification pop up basically from my Dunst configuration saying David Will in System Crafter says whatever. So it's a very easy way to get notifications from people who are mentioning you in chat. And if you have sounds turn off your notifications, you'll also get a sound. But for me, I don't use notification sounds because they'll drive me insane. So they just show up as pop-ups. So that's pretty useful for being notified when someone's trying to get your attention. And it's also very easy because you don't have to do any real configuration to get that to be set up. Let's check really quickly IRC notifications. So there's also a way to get the last notification. There's a notifications bus. I'm guessing that has something to do with dbus. There's an icon you can set if you want to show a different icon for the notification. This requires the built-in notification functionality in Emacs. So on Linux and Windows, it's pretty much going to work out of the box because on Linux, you always have dbus set up. Well, I would say in most cases, you have dbus set up in many Linux environments by default. If you're using something like mine, you have to do it you have to do it manually, but you know that you need it whenever you're in these situations. On Windows, Emacs has support for Windows notifications, so this should work by default on Windows as well. On Mac OS, dbus is not installed by default, obviously, because it's not a Linux system, and Apple doesn't care about dbus, but you can install it. And I think if you have dbus set up and running on Mac OS, then Emacs can send notifications to the Mac OS notifications system, whatever. You can also override the function that's used for this. I've actually tested this on Termux to send notifications to my Android phone from Emacs running in the terminal in Termux. I know it's a lot of details there. There is a function called Control HF IRC notify. No, that's not right. I need a better completion system here. Let's look here instead. Control HF, IRC notification, no, notify. I don't remember the name of the function. There is a function though that you can use to override how notifications are displayed. So if you wanted to, you could override the function on Mac OS and then use some other way to send growl notifications in Mac OS if you wanted to. Hi, Marcos. Thank you very much. So, next thing. Uniquely colorizing nicknames in chat. This is what we saw before, but I wasn't ready to show that yet. There's a package, an external package called IRC HL Nicks that you can install that will cause that to happen. And the benefit of it is that there will be a unique color for each person in the chat so that whenever they say something, it'll be easier to identify who it is based on just the color that you see in the line. So let me jump down to the bottom. Jeez, man. Obviously, it's not a good day for my fingers here. All right. There we go. Under says there was a CMD there in the list of IRC lists. Might it be that? Actually, that is a way to define new IRC commands that you can use inside of your IRC buffers. So it's a different thing that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. Maybe we'll do another video at some point talking about how you can actually write automation for IRC inside of Emacs lists because it's pretty achievable. It's kind of cool actually. So I'm going to paste in this and then I'm going to run it and we're going to see if it will work. So Control X, Control E, cannot load. Oh, I forgot to put the ensure T inside here to make it install the package. So that explains it. Ensure T, and then, man, I keep hitting escape all the time. Control E, Control X, Control E. Yes, Anders, you can definitely write a chatbot in Emacs Lisp using ERC for sure. Okay, so now I have installed ERC HL Nix. I do not think, though, that it will be activated by default because I need to update the ERC modules one more time before that happens. So testing. So, okay, so I'm still listed as a fool, so my name shows up as dark, but if I were to go and run ERC Update Modules, I think that anyone who sends a message now, we're going to see their name. Yep, thanks, Polaris. Their name will be colorized differently. I'm guessing what happens is that there's like a hash computed on the actual text of a person's name, so that whenever, anytime it shows up, you get the same color result from that. I don't know exactly how the color is picked because I feel that the colors it picks are a little bit ugly sometimes. The nice thing is that it seems that the people who are marked as pals still get their name colorized in the same way. And if you want to change that, you could run describe. Let's see. Let's check describe face. ERC pals. So you can change the ERC pal face if you want your pals to look different than that. Ashra says, gives a good little tip here. By the way, folks, if you want to cloak your connection, which means hide your IP address, register your nick with nickserv and then join Libra Cloak and message cloak me. Yes, you should definitely do that. All right, so that was pretty easy. We just turn that on, and now anyone who talks gets a unique color. We can see that Drishal's name is the same shade of green both times that he speaks here. So that's definitely very useful to have that as a feature turned on. It makes it easier to identify people that you've been speaking with already without really having to read everyone's name every time it shows up. All right, so displaying inline images. So one thing that's kind of nice about Slack and Discord and other more modern chat apps is that if someone posts a link to an image in the chat, it will actually display the image in the chat so that everybody can see it without having to click on the link. Right now, if I were to paste a link to an image in this chat, I have one prepared here, it won't show this to me. Now, people in the chat, I apologize if you're going to get spammed with an image right now, but I'm just trying to make a point here. So I can click this link to go look at it, but it doesn't actually give me a preview of the image. That's what the ERC image module is for. This is another external package, and we're just going to install this really quickly by going into our init.el. I'm going to paste this in. Whoops. I always hit the wrong one. I hit Control W instead of Control Y. Okay, and then once again, let's see. Do I have like, no, let's not do that right now. Okay. I'll copy this one more time. Then go back into this window and then press Control Y. All right, so that's ERC image. So what I'm doing here is I'm installing ERC image, and I need to put ensure T as well. And I'm also setting this variable, which I'll explain in a second, and then I'm adding the image module to the ERC modules list. Now, the nice thing about this is that it will show the image in a buffer, but if the image is very large, it will just show the entire size, and you're just gonna have a huge image in your chat buffer, and you probably don't want that. So there is a variable you can set called ERC image inline rescale. You can give it a pixel value for the width, I think, that it should scale to if the image is larger than a particular size. That can keep the size of those images down when they get displayed in the chat buffer. But if we look at the variable ERC image, whoops, oh, I haven't actually installed it yet, so that explains it. Let me use that. Control X, Control E here to install that. Then I will the variable here. Okay, so it tells us that rescale the inline displayed image if non-nil. If the value is the symbol named window, scale the image down to the window size if it's bigger. So basically, it will try to fit it to the size of the window. In my case, my windows are usually pretty wide, so I don't want it to do that. I want it to just, what the hell? I want it to scale to a specific pixel width so that I can kind of have control over that. So that's what I've done here. I've set a pixel width of 300. Depending on your screen resolution, you may need to set this as something even lower than that. It really just depends on how you use your computer. So keep that in mind. So now I'm going to go back to the Systems Crafters channel, and I'm going to bet somebody's already been pasting images there waiting to troll me. So let me pull back up. Wow, I'm having real trouble with escape right now. I just cannot stop pressing escape. All right, so There was an image here. It did not come up yet, interestingly. Let me paste mine again and see if it shows up. Oh, no. I say once again, I have to run the same thing, IRC Update Modules. Now it should work if anybody pastes an image link. So I will grab mine, and then I'll drop it into the chat one more time. Whoops. Okay, someone posted one. Okay, so we have Pikachu here. That's great. That's family friendly, which is nice. And then I will post the link to the Emacs logo. And as you can see, both of these actually scale to about 300 pixels wide because I intentionally picked that size. And it's nice. You can actually get an image inline in your IRC chat. So you don't have to feel like you're completely locked into text world. There can be images that get pasted in. It's kind of nice if people want to paste screenshots of like a problem they're having, or maybe images of anything. Benoit likes to post progress shots of his home improvement projects, which I think is really awesome. So it's a nice thing to do inside of the IRC chat to share things with other people. One other thing that I'm going to mention randomly. Oh, okay. So Simon mentioned something really important. And then there's another thing I forgot to mention as well. So do you have to have Emacs built with image magic support? What is that? I've never seen this prompt before. Okay. That's really interesting. 1 second. Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? So Simon asked, do you have to have Emacs built with image magic support? Yes, you do if you are using Emacs 26 or below, because Emacs 26 is the last version of Emacs that does not have built-in image handling functionality. It depends on an external image magic library to do scaling of images. So if you have Emacs 26 or below, you need to have Emacs built with image magic support. On Emacs 27 and above, there's built-in support for scaling images, but the ERC image module up until today did not have the ability to use those APIs because the module was very out of date. So Karthik and Titan of Old both worked together to update that module and add support for scaling using the new APIs in Emacs 27 and 28. And they submitted the PR to the repo, and it got merged today. So now if you install this package on Emacs 27 or 28, it will work just fine. But yesterday it didn't, because we didn't have that functionality there yet. So another nice benefit of being in a community is that people can work together to try and solve problems. So it's very awesome. So yeah, that's everything for images. So as you can see, we're being rickrolled now because Drashal is very intent on making sure that everybody sees Rick Astley. All right, so emojis. Emojis are a very commonplace thing inside of chats, and we can display emojis inside of ERC buffers. Now, there is an emoji module that is in ERC, or maybe you can install it separately. But what I found is that the images for the emojis look like they're straight out of like AOL Instant Messenger from 1997, and they don't look that great. So there's another way to do this, which is the Emojify package. And this is not just a package that works for ERC, it actually works for any Emacs buffer. So let's say, for instance, you're editing a markdown file that has emojis in it, maybe even like the GitHub flavored markdown emojis that you would see on GitHub. It can turn those into emoji images directly in the buffer, which is pretty nice. So we're just going to show how to use this for ERC mode, but note that you can use this for other types of buffers as well. We'll go over to init.el, and then I'm going to paste this in using the right key binding this time, Control-Y. And we've got it set up to ensure we're setting a hook for ERC mode so that the Emojify mode will be turned on automatically anytime an ERC buffer pops up. And then we're setting the auto load for Emojify mode. So I'm going to evaluate this really quickly. It's going to install that package. Probably at some point it's going to ask me if I want to install the emojis, but it may be the first time we use it. So what I'm going to do is go here to the System Crafter's buffer. I'm going to put in a smiley face, and it's not going to do anything with that yet, I think. I need to enable Emojify mode because this buffer was already active at the time that I set that hook. So if I turn that on, it's going to ask me, should I download emojis? I'm going to type in yes in the echo area. And then it's going to go and pull emoji files from somewhere, basically. And now you can see that there was all the emojis that were here before have actually been changed to have emoji images. They're a little bit blurry, but it's good enough. I mean, it gives you the ability to see emojis in chat, which I think is good. Another thing you can do is use Emojify insert emoji, and then it gives you a completion list for all the possible emojis that you can use. Obviously, we're not seeing that right now, but if I were to put colon, yeah, here we go. So now you can see completions for some of these. So let's say I wanted to use this clapping hand sign and press enter. It will send that in. And hopefully other people who are using an IRC client or the Matrix client are seeing this represented the right way. I'm not sure. You need to install Emojify mode to make sure that all these emojis show up correctly in chat. So if you have used Slack or Discord at all, you know that one of the big things there is to attach emojis to particular messages. You can't do that in IRC, unfortunately. Maybe in the future they'll add something to IRC v3 protocol to allow it. But for now, at least, this is the best way that you can, give emojis to people. Basically, is just put them inline in chat. Master Roman says, I prefer no emoji. I can see who uses certain emojis and form my opinion on that. So yeah, I guess there's always been this silent culture of judging people based on what type of emojis they use. Yeah, I think I've been guilty of that before. Shom says it's not showing up correctly on Matrix, just the text codes. Okay, that's not cool. Okay, let me check the other chat really quick since we have two different types of chat going on at the same time. Valentino says 300 is the same as the value of xft.dpi. No, that's the pixel width of the desired pixel width of the image, I think. Let's see what else we got here that I missed. Henrik says, does anybody know if the lead dev of maintainer for EXWM has stepped down? I noticed that the last commits have been almost a year ago. I don't know what the situation is with that, but all the people who typically contribute on that repo have sort of disappeared. So I don't exactly know what the situation is with that. I would like to know, but I don't necessarily want to bug the person because everybody has their own things going on in their life. So maybe I'll try to send out an inquiry at some point. But for now, we can say that that we don't exactly know what is going on with the status of that project, unfortunately. All right, so next thing, let's see. We're definitely using some time here on this whole thing, but that's cool though, because I think there's a lot of useful stuff that people might want to know about. Okay, so this was something that somebody asked for in the chat earlier in the stream. How do you connect to a specific server easily, especially if you want to set up a key binding for that? The easy thing to do is just write your own function that will connect to that server by calling the ERC TLS function directly. So in this case, I'm defining a function called my/connect IRC. I'm making it interactive so that it shows up in the list of functions in the metax command list. And then I'm just calling ERC TLS because we want that SSL connection. I tell it the server, the port, the nickname to use, and you can tell it the password. Obviously, you shouldn't put your full password directly in your Emacs list code for this function, especially if you're going to commit this to your dot files. So there's a couple ways to do this. One is you can use an external package like passwordstore.el if you use the password manager, and you can call a function to get that password for you whenever this function gets called. This is what I do on my function. I actually use passwordstore to store all of my passwords. However, another thing is that you can use auth source. I think we talked about that in a video a few months ago about how you can get Emacs to encrypt your passwords. If you have that set up, then you can leave this password entry off, but you need to set a variable to make sure that this works. And actually have a different section for that here. If you have auth source set up and you have a password stored in the right way that auth source can find it for this IRC server you're connecting to using the username, the server address, and the port number, then if you don't pass in a password and you set this variable ERC prompt for password to nil, it's going to try to automatically look up your password using auth source so that you can use whatever password you have stored. And you don't have to write your password in your configuration, and you don't have to type it in ever either. So it makes it very easy to connect to IRC without doing anything other than just running the command. And if you need to reconnect, you also don't have to enter your password again. So that's something important to know about if you want to avoid typing in your password all the time. Is either you have a function set up that will pull the password at the time that you're trying to connect, or you set up auth source correctly so that Emacs will internally ask for the password and then log in using that information. If you were to set up a function like this, you can easily bind this to a key binding. As we see here, one that I've used is Control-C-CC, and that will connect to IRC. And then if you wanted to put other chat-related commands under Control-C-C, then they're all there together in a prefix that you can set things together for yourself if you use ERC a lot. Luce, I'm guessing that's the way you pronounce your name, asks, does ERC work with ZNC? At a basic level, yes. So if you connect directly to a ZNC bouncer using ERC, it will work just fine. The problem is if you want to connect to, if your ZNC instance is connected to multiple IRC servers, then you have a problem because automatic authentication won't work because you're connecting to one ZNC server that has the same port, has the same host name, and the same username, in theory. So there's no way for it to distinguish between the two if you try to set both of those up. There's a package called znc.el that you can go look at, znc.el. Let me just do this really quickly. Emacs znc.el. If you go look at this package, it actually provides extra behavior for ERC, which will give you some of that ability to do multiple server connections. Like, for instance, you set this ZNC servers variable and tell it for your bouncer server what username and password pairs you have for the different network slugs, basically the network identifiers that you've set up in your ZNC configuration. A little bit of out of scope for this discussion, but if you want to try to use ZNC correctly with ERC, this is the package you probably want to use. However, I think that, well, it's been updated recently, so maybe it's still doing well as far as being maintained and staying up to date with things. So give that a shot. I haven't done it yet. I need to at some point, but I haven't tried yet. I don't know what else this provides. I mean, it does multiple server support, which is great. Detach on kill could be useful for ZNC. I will explain that at some other point, maybe if I talk about this in more depth, because there's some interesting qualities there. ZNC discard, not sure what that's about. So there's stuff here that you will probably want if you use ZNC. So I definitely recommend checking this out if you do use ZNC to get functionality you might need. So let me actually drop that somewhere here. Elephant says, is there a way to get ERC working with Tls Ssl? Well, I mean, the easiest way is using the ERC TLS command. It should, in theory, just work. But if it doesn't, then you may have some problems with your SSL configuration with Emacs. And I haven't actually had those problems, so I don't really know what to tell you if you do have that problem. But come to the chat, to the System Crafters chat in IRC if you want to. We might be able to try to help you figure it out if you continue to have trouble with it. Let's see. Andre says, isn't ZNC using the IRC protocol? Then it should work. Yeah, I mean, at the most basic level, it is using IRC, but it has some extra stuff that it does that ERC doesn't support inherently. So it's kind of nice to be able to use that extra functionality from within ERC. You just need an extra package. Jean-Noel says, can you enable notifications at the desktop level? That's what we're doing with that notifications module that I showed you before. It does show up at the desktop level, not just inside of Emacs. It showed right here, but that was actually on my desktop. Let's see. Jonathan says, someone showed me on IRC how to automatically give password at login for Mac keychain. Yeah, that was very useful. There's ways to do other types of authentication strategies as well. We should probably put that one on the wiki, but it's already gone from the history buffer now, so I don't think I can find it again. Jonathan, if you remember, please consider contributing that information to the wiki, because I think it would be useful, if it isn't already there. Luce says, my uni uses CAS for authentication with Office 365. Can I make it work with MB-Sync and MU4E? I don't know. You may need to use something called DAVmail for that, but I don't know for sure. Henrik says, does ERC support DCC like for file sharing? I think it does. Yeah, there's a DCC ERC module, says Ashraz. Yeah, for sure. Cool. What else we got here for IRC? I think that was it. Oh, there's one last thing that I haven't covered yet. Jumping to IRC buffers easily. So there's 2 commands for this if you want to get between your IRC buffers quickly. So there's different ways that you can use Emacs for managing IRC. That's sort of the beauty of having a built-in IRC client in Emacs, is because everything's a buffer. All of your IRC chats and private messages are all buffers. So it is possible to manage those buffers the same way that you would do anything else, which means if you like to have a single frame workflow where you just have one Emacs frame all day long, you can use IRC and call up the chat buffers whenever you want to, like whenever you want to check them. If you turn off tracking, then you won't be annoyed by the chat buffers at any time until you're ready to go back to those buffers. And then you can use all the typical key bindings you use and text manipulation tools you use in Emacs inside of those buffers. So it's cool to have all that together. However, the other problem that you typically have in Emacs is that when you have a bunch of buffers of anything open, they all get mixed together, and it's kind of hard to figure out or hard to get the buffer that you're looking for really quickly sometimes, unless you do some extra work to configure things, like maybe for workspaces with perspective.el or eyebrows or separate frames or things like that. So there's a couple commands you can use that makes it easier to get to your IRC buffers. One of them is ERC Switch To Buffer. So if I run that here in MetaX, ERC Switch To Buffer, it will give me a completion list of all of the IRC related buffers that I have open in Emacs. So right now, the only other ones I have is Emacs and then the status buffer for the server. So I can easily just type in Emacs and then jump there. And I can jump back to, oh, it just gave me a message. What did it just say? It says you can run, oh, Control-C, Control-B. Interesting. Didn't know that. Is that a global binding or is that only inside of these buffers? So Control-C, Control-B, and then I can jump to another IRC buffer, basically. Control-C, Control-B, System Crafters, okay. And it also is an easy way to switch back and forth because by default, the buffer that gets selected is the last IRC-related buffer that you were in, as far as I know. Another way is the ERC Track Switched Buffer command. And if you have a specific variable turned on, which is ERC Track Enable Key Bindings, okay, it's set to ask by default. We're going to see what this does. But it sets up another key binding for you that you can use, Control-C, Control-Space, and this binding will automatically jump you to the most recent buffers for the things that you're doing, or sorry, the channels that have activity or the other query windows that have activity in ERC. So if I were to press Control-C, Control-Space, hold on a second, Control-C, Control-Space, it jumped me to the System Crafters buffer. If I press it one more time, Control-C, Control-Space, it jumps me back to init.el. So the nice thing about it is it gives you a way to cycle through your active IRC buffers and then go back to the file that you were originally looking at. So if you are editing something, like you're writing a document or you're editing some code, and you get a notification for an IRC buffer, you can just hit Control-C, Control-Space. It will jump you to this buffer. You can look and see what happened. You can respond. And you hit Control-C, Control-Space again, and it will bring you back to that buffer that you were editing before. And I think if there's multiple things that happen, let's see, query, Davey will test. Let's see, hello. So I'm going to jump over to this window now. So I have 2 things that have activity here. I have System Crafters channel, and I have this message for myself. I'm going to use Control-C, Control-Space. Come on, Control-C, I keep hitting escape. Control-C, Control-Space. It's going to jump me first to System Crafters buffer, Control-C, Control-Space. Then it will jump me to the query buffer, Control-C, Control-Space. Okay, jump me back to System Crafters because there was activity again. Control-C, Control-Space. Then it brings me back to the original buffer I was editing. So it gives you a way to easily cycle through active IRC buffers and then get back to the file that you were in before. So it's pretty useful. I don't know why it didn't ask me to set that up, but if you like this behavior, you should just turn this ERC Track Enable Key Bindings variable on, set it to T by default. That way it's always turned on. And it can be pretty useful. For me, at least, I try to keep my chats in a different workspace. So I just pop over to this workspace here and then look at it and then go back to what I was doing, because it allows me to do that without changing window configurations and dealing with all other types of problems. But, you know, just like anything else in Emacs, it's up to you to decide what your workflow is. And if this works for you, then great. I think that was everything I wanted to cover for ERC config. There's a lot of stuff. I'm going to put this in the show notes for the stream after the stream is over so that you have access to it, and then you can use that as a resource. And if you think of any other cool things you can do with ERC, if you look into stuff and you want to share that information with other people, definitely consider adding it to the System Preference Wiki. Come to the chat and we can help you get started with that. And we can sort of build a little bit of a knowledge base for people who are maybe coming from other apps like Discord or Slack, and they're trying to figure out how to do certain things because, you know, by default, you go into this IRC and it looks very different and a little bit unfriendly at first, maybe. So if we can kind of collectively build a better default configuration for people who are used to more modern interfaces, then it might be easier for people to try out IRC and not get too lost in the shuffle there. All right, let me jump back. So I need to set up a binding in this config where escape gets mapped to Control-G, because I just get myself into trouble all the time pressing that button over and over. Let's see. Seeing if I missed anything important inside of the chat here. People are just chatting with each other, which is great. Okay, so I've got a couple of Emacs news items that I thought might be interesting to talk about. Not very much. I looked around at Sachichua's Emacs news list as usual, because it's a great resource, and found a couple things that I thought were interesting. There's other things that are interesting this week. I just didn't have time to look at everything. So these are the things that jumped out at me whenever I looked at the list last night. First of all, Svglib. Let's see if this pulls up in the right place. Are you going to open it? There we go. No, what? Did I copy the wrong link? No way. Okay, so something weird's going on there. Anyway, it didn't select the right window, but that's fine. So Svglib. So probably you've seen the author of this library around a lot, especially if you use the Emacs subreddit on Reddit. This is Nicolas Rouget, and he is the author of the Nano Emacs configuration and themes, and also has done a lot of impressive work on customizing the email interface of MU4E. This is another library that he's put together called Svglib, which I find to be very interesting for package authors, because what it does is allows you to generate vector graphic images that get placed into Emacs buffers for doing user interface elements effectively. So for instance, for to-do items inside of org mode files, you can have a nice little tag looking thing here that has a background, has certain colorization, maybe an outline. And you could do something sort of like this with faces inside of org mode, but this has like rounded corners and it just looks nicer. You can also do progress bars for certain things that look really nice. I think there were some other things like different sizing or thickness. I think you had some stars here, like a check mark, even like the Emacs logos. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this library. I have some ideas for how I want to use this, because I think it's a very nice way to add some nice presentation details to your Emacs buffers. And it's very easy to use, apparently. There's just like a few functions that you have some parameters that you can pass in things. So Svglib tag. So there's a specific function for creating these tag-like icons, I guess you could say. You can control things like the radius amount, the thickness of the stroke, all the details that you would care about in making a tag-like thing like this. There's also an Svglib progress function that gives you the ability to have a progress bar, and also have a progress bar with a little bit of a different style, and then showing icons inside of a rectangle as well. So there's probably a lot of ways you can imagine using this. So if you want to try that out, definitely check out the Svglib package. There's a little demo file here that you can look at that gives you some examples of how to do this. I believe it's basically the same thing as what we saw in the screenshot. So give that a shot and let Nicholas know what you think about that. Also, I wanted to point out that Consult and Marginalia have both been updated recently. Did that get opened? No. And they've been published to ELPA. So I think that they're already there. It's just an update has been published now. Let me make sure that this thing is opening correctly. There we go. So it's both these packages are written by Minad. If you remember the discussion we were having about Vertigo and Consult a couple weeks ago, this is the same packages we've been talking about so far. They've been updated with some functionality that take advantage of some new stuff that's been added to Emacs 28 about grouping completions. So there's some new user interface, I think, for that in a lot of cases. So it's something worth taking a look at if you are using Consult and Marginalia already and you want to have a little bit of a better presentation in that. I haven't set these up myself yet. I need to update, but it's already out there. So if you want to install those, they're ready to go. And I definitely recommend, like I said, the last stream, I think, excuse me, keep these things up to date because, and keep them all up to date at the same time. Try to stay a little bit more fresh on these. They're still relatively new packages. They're being developed. Bugs are being fixed all the time. So it's good to try to pick up the latest changes to see if it improves the the configuration for you. And definitely file issues on the repos for all these projects if you find anything wrong with them or if you have suggestions, because Minad is very responsive to feedback. All right, so the last thing in the list here is an article that I saw by Tori Anderson, who also is an active member of the Emacs community. If it loads it up again, I need to press Control-C, Control-O on these. All right. So it's an article titled, What Can Emacs Give Me in 2021? Apparently there was a paper written in 1996 called The Mother of All Emacs Papers. I've never heard of this before, but apparently is a paper that sort of gives a history of Multics Emacs, which is, excuse me, before GNU Emacs, there were other implementations of the concept of Emacs. GNU Emacs was not the first Emacs implementation. So basically, this is a document, I guess, that was written about that and maybe explain some design decisions behind how things were done a certain way. And the interesting thing about that is that design aspects of that Emacs found their way into GNU Emacs and kind of were carried along for a very long time. And this document is basically in response to kind of re-examine some of those things to put them in contrast to what the reason why those things were made in the past. So he says that in that paper, we learned that Emacs was born of a necessity for a text tool that had to solve several problems. I'm starting to lose my voice now, which is great. So hardware and memory space limitations. So if you think about computers back in those days, I mean, Emacs is very old. Computers had way less memory back then. And if you had to have a display editor in a terminal, you had to be very conservative on memory. So things were probably implemented in a way that seems very strange these days because we have plenty of memory, even to the level where applications include an entire web browser just to show their user interface, if you know what I'm talking about. So Emacs has some sort of design quirks that are holdovers from a long time ago which really aren't necessary anymore. And I think a lot of that stuff has been removed over time. It's basically what Tori is saying in this article. Also, that the REPL-based development flow was sort of invented because compilation took forever on programs back in the day. So using a REPL to interactively edit a program was much more efficient. So it's not just because it's fun to to interactively write a program. It actually was a matter of efficiency back in those days. So it sort of explains why there would have been a REPL inside of Emacs in the past. Kind of some interesting analysis on that. Also, he mentions the learning curve about whether there's actually a learning curve to Emacs, and obviously, yes, there is a learning curve to Emacs, especially if you're starting out with just plain Emacs. You don't really know what to do next, and it's sort of the reason why I'm making a lot of these videos is because it's not obvious how to get started if you've never used Emacs before. I'm not going to read all the things that he said here. I'm mainly just pointing out this article as an interesting thing to take a look at if you're interested in the ideas that I just brought up here. But the list here is sort of like the core of the article is what does Emacs solve in 2021? It mentions stability, like the fact that Emacs functionality has remains stable and hasn't changed drastically in that amount of time, which is pretty amazing. The mental space ecosystem. I'm trying to find the core point here. The solutions that are created are often smart, innovative, and useful. I guess it's mainly if people need quick solutions, they don't use Emacs because it's not very quick to set things up. Anyway, you can read this article. I'm not going to sit here and read it to you because that would be boring. But I think it's an interesting article to look into sort of the context for Emacs today versus what it used to be a long time ago, and also comparing the environment at the time of, you know, other tools that were available. All right, so that's all I had as far as content and news is concerned. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to read the chat, answer questions. Whatever people want to talk about is totally fair game. All right, let's see here what people have been saying in the chat. Luce says, the thing is, IRC Switch To Buffer pulls up the channels only for the server you're on. I don't know if that's true. Does it? Because I think it would pull up any of the channels that you're on, but I don't know for sure. I haven't looked at the code. Truth says, I've been following your video, but on my config file, I keep getting symbol function definition is void use package. You need to install use package. So make sure that you follow the initial stuff that will tell you about. That will install use package for you, because use package does not come in Emacs by default. It's actually a package that has to be installed first before you can use it. A little bit confusing, I know. Let's see. Ahmed says, my Emacs is not working because undefined color in X resources. I don't know why that would be the case unless you've actually configured X resources, and you'd have to figure out which color it's complaining about. Yes, Anders says if use package is installed, it should find the function, so something is wrong with the way that it got installed. Antonio says, have you tried the Emacs.service for systemd that comes with later Emacs? I have not tried that, but I don't use a system that I don't use a system that uses systemd. I use GNU Geeks, which uses GNU Shepherd, so I haven't had a chance to try it. Rochelle asked me to link the paper, so I'll definitely link that too. Where is it? There it is. I'm going to copy this link address. I know I'm doing this with a mouse, which is losing me geek points here. Paste it, dude. Paste. There you go. Okay. Elephant says, happy Pride, y'all. Happy Pride, indeed. Make sure to enable rainbow parens. Well, I enabled that anyway, but I guess it will have special meaning now. Eric says, what server are you on? We're on irc.libra.chat. Anders says that Multics has one of the main selling points of Multics was that it had Emacs and GCC. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Antonio says, I've had a problem with starting Emacs daemon with that service and then starting it by hand. Well, using Emacs as a daemon has certain quirks that you have to deal with, so you might have to... You should try not using the service file first. You should try just running it as a daemon yourself and then see if your config works with it, and then try to run it as a service after that. And then maybe you can figure out why one is different than the other, I think. Oh, I'll put it in the chat too. Let's see if it shows up. There we go. All right. Okay, some stuff about ZNC in the IRC, it sounds like. So in the future, I probably won't be showing the IRC at the same time as the YouTube chat, because it's kind of crazy to be watching two chats at the same time. However, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do about stream chat going forward, because I think it would be nice if we could have a more Emacs-friendly chat for the stream, which could probably be in IRC. But I don't want to alienate people who would come to the YouTube stream and want to be able to chat in the chat box there. So I'm trying to think about how I would go about that. Like maybe I would bridge the YouTube chat into the IRC or something like that. We'll see how that goes, but it would be nice if we could use IRC as the primary chat interface, because it would give me the ability to do some of the things I was intending to do, making an YouTube live chat buffer inside of Emacs. If I could do that with IRC instead, then it might be a lot easier. So ultimately, I might try to do something like that, but it will be a while before that happens, because, you know, I've got too many things going on at the same time, and I think I got to try to minimize the projects that I get myself into, because I definitely I sign myself up for too much work sometimes. But it's all fun, man. It's so much fun, and that's the reason why I keep doing it, because I just have way too much fun. Let's see, anything else interesting? Oh, yeah, so we haven't done a .file detective for a while, and I've been thinking about the right way to do that, and I finally set up the next person whose configuration that I want to examine. It's going to happen next Friday, so long as everything goes as planned, and it's going to be Ambravar, who is a person who inspired me very early on in this whole journey of me sort of going really deep into Emacs and also using GNU Geeks. So if you've never seen Ambravar's blog before, it's ambravar.xyz. I'm gonna put that in the show notes too. And he's got a lot of articles here about Emacs, GNU Geeks, and a lot of other things related to those things. Also using alternative applications, either in Emacs or just in general. And also, he's one of the main contributors to the Nix web browser. So aside from .file detective, we might have some other interesting things to chat about with Ambravar next week. So I think he's going to join us about 15 minutes into the stream on next Friday. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I'm very appreciative to him for being willing to come on and have a conversation with me about it. This time, we're going to try to do it as a voice chat while the stream is going on, instead of doing everything in the stream chat like we did with the last couple of .file detectives. I think it's going to be easier for us to have a conversation about the things in the config we're looking at, without the delay of the stream chat getting in the way. So it should be a lot better. That was a suggestion that I got from Techosaur after the last .file detective I did with him, where he was like, you know, it'd be better if we could just do a voice chat, so there would be less latency in the discussion. So yeah, I agree completely. So that's why I'm trying to change it now. Yeah, Eric, if you see no process running, then you probably aren't connected to the server. Yeah, you have to join it first. Luce, that was probably 4 or 5 streams ago, I think, if you want to check that out. Truth says, do you do one-on-one lessons, and what's the price? People have asked me that. I don't exactly know how I would go about that, because I don't know. It's weird asking people for money. It's already weird to ask people to be sponsors, but you know, I'll think about it. Yeah, Tech is a very active person, especially now in the org community, and I think it's very awesome that he's contributing there and trying to corral the whole contribution process to org. I think it's great. Felipe says, it looks like I've got here a little bit too late for the stream. Yeah, I mean, I'm about to close it down in a minute or two here, but I'm glad you showed up. Well, I hope that today it was useful to see some extra things you can do with your ERC config. As you can see, it doesn't really take very much to get a better experience in ERC, and it's pretty good. I mean, using IRC and Emacs is good enough. You don't need an external client, and I dare say that it's better to use it inside of Emacs because you have all the other benefits of Emacs at your disposal as well. So I hope to see more of you showing up in the System Craft and more Emacs friendly environment, meaning that we can use the chat inside of Emacs. So definitely come check that out if you want to, and we're all going to be working together to try to figure out the right type of configuration for everyone to use to get the best experience there. So we very much appreciate your input and your collaboration on that. Anders says, wasn't T-code the editor that Emacs was written in? I think so, right? Andrew says, what is the name you mentioned? It's Ambravar. I'm putting it in the chat right now. I'm making sure that this is actually the right address. Yeah. There we go. Okay, folks, I think that's enough for one day. We've hit the 2-hour mark, so I'll give you back the rest of your day or evening, wherever you might be in the world. Before I go, I would love to thank my sponsors. And like I said last time, I haven't updated it, and I still haven't updated it because I meant to make a new display for it, and I just never had time because I keep getting myself into too much trouble. So it's a little bit out of date, but these people, plus the others who have joined since then, have decided to sponsor the work that I'm doing, making videos about GNU Emacs, GNU Geeks, and all the other cool things we talk about on this channel. And I'm very appreciative to them for their support. If you're interested in supporting the work that I'm doing here, please check out the links below in the description. I'm on both GitHub sponsors and Patreon. I also have links to PayPal and GitHub sponsors for one-time tips. And if you're not interested in supporting in that way, I would very much appreciate it if you would like the video, because it helps other people find it better, you know, the YouTube algorithm and all that. And also share the videos with other people and encourage them to subscribe so that we can all have more people coming and joining this cool community where we talk about cool stuff every day. So thanks to everybody who joined on the stream today. I really appreciate all you being here and all of your participation. And hopefully I'll see more of you in the IRC as time goes on this week, and we'll build that community up as well. Next week, I don't know which video I'm going to do yet. I still need to try to do the Geeks installation video, so I might try to do that, but don't hold me to that. We'll see which one I come up with in the end. Yeah, I'll still come up with something. We'll see. Until next time, thanks a lot for watching, and have a great weekend to all of you, and happy hacking. See you next time.